What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another video and welcome to the start of the redraft series this summer. If you follow me on Instagram or if you saw my YouTube post on my page, every single Wednesday I am going to be dropping a redraft on this page. Yes, in the announcement it had a 2021 redraft. I tried to do that for like an hour or two. I kept on changing the order and I decided that it's total shit show in 2021 right now. Those guys are only in their draft year +4 or draft year +5 at this point. So we're going to actually start in 2020. When looking at 2021, like 2 through 9 is kind of indistinguishable. But in 2020, I have a lot of conviction in where I've put these guys. So that's where we're starting. We're probably going to do it for like 10 to 12 weeks. So go down to like 2008, 2009, most likely, if you guys like this series. And we're starting in 2020, the COVID draft, the first COVID draft, at least the Lafreniere, Stützle, Byfield, Raymond. This is the original order. I'll throw it up right now. That's the top 10. We're just doing the top 10. So yeah, let's do a redraft. And what this is going to be based on, obviously, first and foremost, who I think is going to have the best overall career based on what they've done thus far in projecting going forward. If it's very close between those, I will somewhat factor in positional need based on at the time in 2020 what their teams needed, not factoring in who they drafted in 2021, 2022, 23, because obviously there's a ripple effect. If they go with a certain position in 2020, maybe they don't go with the other players in 2021 and 22. So it's pretty straightforward. I'm not factoring in contracts as well if they eventually did sign with their teams, because we don't know if they end up signing those contracts with their new teams. So yeah, let's dive into it. We're going to start with first overall and work our way down to 10 so we kind of have some of that intrigue towards the end instead of knowing who the final 2 and then the final 1 guy is. But yeah, let's get into it. And up first, at first overall, the OG pick was, of course, Alexis Lafreniere. He will not be going first overall at this redraft. Instead, it'll be Tim Stützle. When looking at it, the Rangers were still kind of in their rebuild, although they did sign Artemi Panarin the season prior. But yeah, they just go with the best player. And in my opinion, the best player is Tim Stützle. There's definitely somewhat of a debate for that. But for me, it's Tim Stützle, especially as a center. If they draft Tim Stützle, they're not eventually trading for a 32-year-old JT Miller down the line. But regardless, when looking at them, they got Capo Caco the year prior. You get Tim Stützle, who his first 3 years in the NHL was looking like he was going to be a superstar. When looking at the fact that he had 29 points, 53 games, then 58 points, then 39 goals, 51 assists, 90 points. It looked like a surefire future top 15 player. Last year did deal with some injuries, had 70 points in 75 games, and this year 79 points, but especially defensively, the way that he developed, the way that he was defensively as that legit number 1 center compared to the prior 3 seasons, took huge strides. So going forward, you have a guy that's 23 years old and has a floor of being about a point per game. Solid defensive number 1 center. And imagine he was playing with an Artemi Panarin. Maybe Capo Caco ends up working out if Tim Stützle's in New York. So yeah, I have Tim Stützle going first overall. I'm not going to act like there's not any debates when looking at the guys 2 through 4 potentially that could go ahead of him, but I'd go Stützle for the New York Rangers. At second overall, originally it was Quinton Byfield. I'm going to go with Lucas Raymond. I think similarly to New York Rangers, the LA Kings still were in the midst of their rebuild. You kind of just go with the best player, and I think that probably is Lucas Raymond at this point, especially with what he's done in the last 2 seasons. Amazing rookie year, 57 points, then had a bit of a sophomore slump. Last season, 31 goals, 72 points. This year, 80 points. Arguably was the Detroit Red Wings' best player on their team. Just such a skilled playmaker. We especially saw it at 4 Nations. He was like arguably Sweden's best player as well. Lucas Raymond at 23 years old has established himself as a point per game top-end winger, and I think for the LA Kings, just adding that within their system, they got Turcotte in 2019, but Lucas Raymond really would be their franchise forward going forward, and they wouldn't have to go out and get Kevin Fiala, wouldn't have to swing on a Pierre-Luc Dubois down the line. I think Lucas Raymond at second overall makes a lot of sense for the Los Angeles Kings, who did initially go forward, although it was a center in the OG draft. At third overall, the Ottawa Senators selected Tim Stützle. He's off the board at this point, so I'm actually going to go with the other guy that they drafted within the top 10, that being Jake Sanderson. Probably the easiest pick just because we don't have to speculate how he would develop on his new team, because his new team is his OG team. And when looking at Sanderson, he's really progressed fantastically his first 3. Yeah, is he 3 years into the NHL? He's progressed throughout very good in terms of every year building to the point this year in the 50s points, playing 24 minutes a night. handling it very well. One of the best skating defensemen in the entire NHL, and that just allows him to be so good in transition, so good, very good active stick as well in the defensive zone. So yeah, at this point, I think he's a top 15-ish defenseman in the NHL. He's still only 22 years old. He has, or maybe he's turning it like this week, but he has a July birthday, so he was one of the youngest guys in this class. When looking at Ottawa at the time, they selected Brady Tkachuk in 2018. They did have Thomas Chabot on the left side at the time, but again, they selected Sanderson regardless. So Sanderson is the pick here for the Ottawa Senators. At fourth overall, the Detroit Red Wings selected Lucas Raymond. Also off the board, the new pick here, they're sticking with the winger. They're going to go with Seth Jarvis. When looking at Seth Jarvis, definitely a Steve Yzerman kind of guy. High IQ, two-way player, and this season he was damn good. Well, first off, similarly to a Lucas Raymond, had a similar trajectory in terms of an amazing rookie year, then a bit of a sophomore slump. Last season went for around 60-ish points in 81 games. This season, 67 points in 73 games while being fantastic defensively. When looking at him this year, he finished ninth in expected goals against per 60 in the NHL among the 207 forwards that played at least 950 minutes. Last year, that was sixth. This year on Carolina, he was first in that regard. So although he definitely benefits from playing in a great defensive system, they're in part a great defensive team because of Seth Jarvis. So you have a guy that already has 230-goal seasons, already one of the best defensive wingers in the NHL. You can make an argument that he should go ahead of Stützle and Raymond, and I hear you out in terms of a forward. I just think that those guys, in terms of the playmaking abilities and the offensive ceiling, just have a little bit more, and that they could eventually reach, and Stützle kind of did reach back in 2023. But yeah, I love Seth Jarvis. I think he'd be a good fit on Detroit, who at the time drafted Sider. They were in basically year two of the Yzer plan. Drafted Sider the year prior, so they're clearly going with a forward. There's not another defenseman in the same realm as Seth Jarvis, in my opinion. But yeah, they go with Seth Jarvis. They get a damn good winger for the future. At fifth overall, the Ottawa Senators selected Jake Sanderson. That player is off the board, going to them at third overall. So the new pick, it's going to be Quinton Byfield. We talked about it before with Ottawa at that point. They had Tkachuk, winger. They just drafted Sanderson, defenseman. They had Chabot, defenseman as well. They did have Josh Norris in the Erik Karlsson trade, but he was not looking like a surefire number one center. Eventually didn't pan out into that. So as a result, Quinton Byfield is the pick here. When looking at Byfield, the flashes have been there. I still think he has the potential to maybe be a legit number one center. It's actually crazy like how inconsistent he's been in 2023, 2024. He had an 18-game stretch where he had 20 points, a 15-game stretch when he had 16 points. Outside of that, in 47 games, he had 19 points. Then in 2024, 2025, it was a tale of two different halves, basically. In the back half, he had 31 points in 32 games, but then in the first half-ish, he had 23 points in 49 games. You look at him, 6'5", damn good at most things, just need to be more consistent. You see the highlight reel goals in Quinton Byfield, maybe in Ottawa could have panned out or would have panned out better. Still thinking LA he could turn into something. It just kind of, it just hasn't really worked out so much. But yeah, at this point, he's had back-to-back 50-ish point seasons. I think he'd be the pick for the Ottawa Senators here. The Anaheim Ducks at sixth overall, OG pick, Jamie Drysdale. Not going to be Drysdale here. I'm going to go with JJ Peterka. A defenseman would be kind of ideal here, but I do think Peterka is the pick when looking at the way that he has progressed thus far in the NHL, from 32 points to 50 points to now 68 points this season. Granted, he did have the highest on-ice shooting percentage, not just his shooting percentage, his teammates as well. So it was a little bit of a fluky season, but this guy is already one of the best players in transition, one of the best players off the rush, a damn fast skater. And I think if he got drafted by the Anaheim Ducks, maybe him and Trevor Zegras turn into a power duo, and they're still in the they're still on the Anaheim Ducks at this point, putting up 70-point seasons. So yeah, I think JJ Peterka, give a winger for Trevor Zegras at the time, it could have worked out a lot better than it ended up working out in Anaheim. At seventh overall, Alexander Holtz was the OG pick. Not going to be Holtz here. New pick is Brock Faber, a solid defenseman that has proven to be able to handle 25-ish minutes. This season was not nearly as good of his rookie year, but I think it's in part just because he's playing damn tough minutes and playing 25-plus minutes. He should not be playing that much. They should be playing Spurgeon and Brodin more. When looking at the New Jersey Devils at the time, of course, they didn't have Luke Hughes yet. They had Heischer. They had Hughes. They had their two franchise forwards for the most part. They needed more so of a defenseman. And yeah, I think Brock Faber would develop pretty damn good on the New Jersey Devils. And especially we saw in the Four Nations this year when he actually had a much better partner than, say, Jacob Middleton, how effective he was in not playing 26 minutes a night. Brock Faber, I think, is the pick here. He's definitely a stock down guy after this most recent season, but still at the bare minimum should be a solid to good top pair guy going forward. He's got to be the legit number one on Minnesota because those two other guys, Spurgeon and Brodin, are starting to get up there in age. But on New Jersey would have been pretty damn cool. And they hadn't signed Dougie Hamilton at the time. That was 2020, 2021. So you don't even factor in that. Brock Faber, the pick for the New Jersey Devils. At 8th overall, Jack Quinn was the OG pick, new pick. I'm going with Dylan Holloway. It's a little bit of a tough one. I could see you saying Dylan Holloway should go 6th, maybe even 5th overall, because this season he was so damn good for the St. Louis Blues. And when you apply the context, it's not. He was like, I don't really hold his Edmonton years against him because he was stuck in a bottom 6 role where he was just trying to stay in the lineup, trying not to get taken out of the lineup. Compared to this year, he was trying new things. He had a lot more freedom in terms of being on St. Louis, and it translated into a lot of success. 26 goals, 37 assists, 63 points in 77 games. Awesome, unreal analytics. So I tend to believe that he is going to be this solid first liner going forward. One of the better skaters in the NHL. We saw those flashes in Edmonton, finally put it together, more so the cerebral IQ part of the game in St. Louis. And just once he was given a bigger opportunity, a jump from like 11, 12 minutes to like 16, 17 minutes. It was very impressive. In terms of Buffalo, imagine a line, because at the time, Jack Eichel was still on the team. Imagine a line of Dylan Holloway, Jack Eichel. That would have been gross. But regardless, they had Eichel, they had Thompson in the system, they had Cousins, they drafted Dahlin back in 2018. So although they did have Reinhart on the wing as well, I think a winger does make sense here also in terms of positional, but in terms of upside, I think he does have the clear highest upside remaining in the 2020 draft. The Minnesota Wild, 9th overall. Originally went Marco Rossi. I don't think I'm going to do that again, considering how that relationship is panning out, although I like Marco Rossi a lot. Instead, I'm going to go with Anton Lundell when looking at Minnesota. Second line center has been a point of need, especially in recent years. You get Anton Lundell, and I mean, at the time, they had Marco Rossi. You weren't sure Kaprizov was going to turn into this absolute stud, so you go with forward. You go with Anton Lundell when looking at the way that this guy has performed, especially the last 2 years in the playoffs. 19 points in 23 games this year in the playoffs. Unreal once he had really good talent around them. Brad Marchand, Eetu Luostarinen, and he led the NHL playoffs in plus minus, as well as last year having 17 points as well. And when looking at when Barkov was out this year for the Florida Panthers, he had 13 points in 14 games. I think he would just be the ideal two-way 60-ish. He actually might be the number one center by now, ahead of Joel Eriksson Ek, if he was given the proper opportunity. In Florida, he's kind of stuck in that third center role. And I say stuck, like he's back-to-back Stanley Cup champion. He's not too mad about that. You got a $30 million contract. But I think Anton Lundell would be able to handle a much more elevated role. He just plays behind Alexander Barkov and Sam Bennett in Florida. So I think people maybe underrate him a little bit. He's called Baby Barkov for a reason. This guy is a damn good two-way center, and I think he would be awesome in Minnesota. And then our last pick, the Winnipeg Jets. Perfetti, I do like Perfetti a lot, but I think I am going to go with Marco Rossi when looking at it. At the time, they had like Andrew Kopp as their second-line center, then Pierre-Luc Dubois at the time, and second-line center has become a pretty big need for this team in the last 2 seasons. So when looking at Marco Rossi, yeah, he's a little bit undersized. He's 5'9", but the skill is really undeniable with this kid. Went from having like 1 point in 19 games his first year in the NHL to then having 40 to now having 60. Yes, he does benefit from playing with guys like Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy. But yeah, although the NHL GMs maybe don't value him as much as us, I value him, and I think he'd be a good pick for the Winnipeg Jets, who definitely have had problems with the second line center consistently since like the Brian Little days in the 2010s for the most part. So I have them going with Marco Rossi. So here is the full 1 through 10. Stützle to the Rangers, Raymond to the Kings, Sanderson to the Senators, Jarvis, Red Wings, Byfield to the Senators, Peterka Ducks, Faber, Devils, Holloway, Sabres, Lundell, Minnesota, and Marco Rossi to the Winnipeg Jets. Some other guys that I considered within this: Cole Perfetti. I think he is a little bit underrated, should be playing more in Winnipeg, and probably will now that Nikolai Ehlers is out of there. Dawson Mercer, after that 2023 season when he had 27 goals, 29 assists, 56 points, I probably had him within like the top 8 of a redraft, but he has like regressed and then plateaued this season. Caden Gooley, very good defenseman, more so. I just don't think he really has a ceiling compared to some of these other guys, and there's not like a clear gaping positional need at the 8 through 10 range in terms of a left-handed defenseman. The New York Rangers, Will Cooley, of course, a 6'3" physical presence that I think could develop into like a 25 goal, 35 assist, 60-point guy. And I guess that other New York Rangers player, Alexi Lafreniere, that went first overall, although this season, once he signed that extension, he was like half a point per game, and that's even with playing with a guy like Artemi Panarin. I don't think that he belongs in the top 10 of a redraft at this point. I'm going to get called a hater for that one. Let me know in the comments. What do you think about this? Who would you move around? I'll be seeing the next one, 2019 next week. Peace.